Hello, welcome to this lesson on how to form complex sentences using relative pronouns. You're probably asking yourself right now, why would I even need this skill? Well, when you were writing your essay, you were told to pay attention to 6 traits of writing, okay? And these were main idea, organization, voice, and actually all these 3 should have been taken care of during your planning stage. Now we have reached the stage of the first draft, and we are going to go on with editing. When you edit your draft, the first thing you should take care of is really fluency, not finding better vocabulary words or getting rid of extra commas. No. Fluency actually means how sentences flow. Do they flow well? Do you have nice smooth transitions? Do you have a variation in length, some short and some long? And do you have variation in types? And you might be asking yourself at this point, okay, types of sentences. You have actually, if you can remember from a few grades ago, simple, you have compound, you have complex, you have compound complex, and you have a huge headache on top of that. We're going to leave the first 2 types today and concentrate only on the complex sentences. What is a complex sentence? At its lowest level, the simplest type is a sentence that has 2 clauses, the main clause and a subordinate clause. I like to say main starts with M, and that gives you a mnemonic for remembering what the main clause does. It's the mother clause. On the other hand, subordinate clauses start with an S, right? So this is your son clause. Now this tells you that this sentence should be about the mom, the mother. And she holds the son by the hand because she happens to have a son that she drags along, but it is really about the mother. Now, this is all going to start making sense to you once we reach the end of this lesson. Okay. The main clause doesn't have to be that simple. It could actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 more subordinate clauses. It could actually have a subordinate clause that itself has another subordinate clause, so mom, son, grandson, another grandson. Or it could have all kind of complicated and down to the great-grandson. However, we are now in the 21st century, and we write in a much more compact format than people used to in the 18th and 19th century. And so we're going to start with the very simple main clause plus subordinate clause, okay? And in the complex sentence, we're only going to look at the ones that are formed using a relative pronoun. What is a pronoun? Review very quickly because some of you might need it actually. So a pronoun is a pronoun. Pro means instead of. Noun means a noun. Therefore, a pronoun is a word that substitutes or acts instead of a noun. And a relative pronoun then is a word, like we said, that replaces a noun that is being repeated. So when you have these 2 sentences that need a replacement. Yeah, I'm getting lost what I'm saying. Let's look at this chart of relative pronouns. Okay. If you want to replace a person, you use one of the WHO relative pronouns, which are who, whom, and whose. Well, it actually sounds like WHO, World Health Organization, but yeah, it has to do with the health of these persons here. If it's an animal or a thing, you're going to use which, or the ... of which. And there's a further lesson on this one. If your animal is a pet and you are the kind of person who considers your pet to be part of family, like my cat is my daughter kind of thing, then you are welcome to use the person type of relative pronoun for that. The one thing you should avoid is that and that. Avoid as much as possible. Ha 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 ha. Right. 50 years ago, you would have been told that in a very formal writing, you never use that. But today, it has become so common to use that it is not quite considered wrong anymore. Still, I would like you to concentrate only on these in this particular lesson. There are a few more relative pronouns that we are going to put aside for now. Okay. Now, once you have to pick one, you realize that you have to figure out what is the function of that noun, because otherwise there's no way you can pick the right one, right? So the function means the job. The job of that noun. Is it a subject? Is it an object? Or is it in the possessive case? Let's work on one example. Let's take a simple sentence devoid of adjectives and adverbs and so on and so forth. The witch hated Snow White. Snow White was the fairest in the land. You just saw this in your draft and you don't like it. It looks too simple. Okay, so what's the problem? The problem is you have a repeated noun, right? And you want to put these two together now. And you want to put these two together now into a complex sentence. Simple sentence, since there are two of them, you have to pick one. You wish to use as main clause. So which one is going to be your main clause? I'm going to pick this one, the first one. The witch hated Snow White. Good. Done with the first step. Second step. Identify the noun or noun phrase that is repeated. Very simple. It's going to be Snow White, right? Okay. Now select the appropriate relative pronoun. Oh, now I'm stuck. Which relative, which noun are we talking about? The one in the first, the one in the second sentence? Which one? You see there's one here and there's one here, right? So which one exactly am I looking for its function? Well, think about it. Snow White, this word has to appear, these two words have to appear somewhere. And they're not going to appear at the end. Obviously, they're going to appear in the beginning of a sentence, in your main clause. So therefore, it is in the second clause that you're going to be looking for the function. Okay? So here we go. First one that I'm going to use as main clause, leave it aside. Look at the second one. Snow White. And this is how you're going to find out. Who was the fairest in the land? Snow White. Therefore, Snow White is the subject of the verb was. And you can also find the lesson on functions of nouns if you cannot remember how to find out subjects, objects, and so on and so forth. Okay, so back to my chart here. It was a person. I know Snow White is a person. And since we said it's a subject, I'm going to pick this one. Who? Okay, next step. Copy down. I'm going to start writing my complex sentence now. Copy down the first clause, including the noun that you wish to replace. Right after it, and this is really important here, right after it. So you reach the noun that you want to replace and you stop right there, and there you're going to write your relative pronoun. So here we go. Main clause. I'm going to write down the witch hated Snow White. Oh, well, lucky me. My noun happens to be the end of the sentence. So I copy the whole thing, but do not put in that period, right? Since we are going to combine it with something else. Then I write down my relative pronoun, which I already picked. It was a subject, so who. What's next? Now copy the second clause without that noun, obviously, since we got rid of it by replacing it with a relative pronoun, right? So here we go. I'm going to take out Snow White and I copy the rest of it. Was the fairest in the land. So we have now the witch hated Snow White, who was the fairest in the land. Done. That was simple enough. Now, remember we asked in the beginning, which one do you want to pick as your main clause, and we picked the first one. So now it is possible to pick the second one instead. Let's look at it. The witch hated Snow White, that's going to go second now. And I'm going to use this one, Snow White was the fairest in the land, as my main or first clause. Here we go. Snow White put it here and the witch put it here. And I'm going to follow the steps again. Copy down the main clause up to the noun you want to replace. And it so happens this time it's not the end of the sentence, it's right in the beginning. So Snow White, and I'm going to stop right here. And then look at this one. Figure out its function. The witch hated whom? Snow White. The witch hated whom? Snow White. It answers my question. So therefore, Snow White is a direct object of the verb hated. I go to my objects here, pronoun whom. That's what I'm going to use. And here I go. Snow White, whom. What next? There you go. We have to remember what's next. After you take out Snow White, you copy the rest of the subordinate clause. So we'll copy that, the witch hated. What do you do after that? I think most of you got it right. You copy the remainder of the main clause. So Snow White, whom, then over here, the witch hated, then over here, was the fairest in the land. So now I get Snow White, whom the witch hated, was the fairest in the land. And you're done with both sentences. Now, very nice, you've learned how to do this, but which one are you supposed to use? Look at this. Suppose you were talking about fairy tales and your topic sentence mentioned princesses are usually endowed with extreme qualities such as beauty. For example, supporting sentence, Snow White. On the other hand, if you're talking about evil mothers in fairy tales, then obviously your supporting evidence or concrete detail would have to deal with the witch. Happy writing!